I don't know of anything more tragic than a young girl just putting herself at the mercy of a handsome appearance, and I hope that Mr. O'Connor is not too good looking.
As a matter of fact, he isn't. His face is covered with freckles. He's got a very large nose.
He's not right down homely.
No, I wouldn't say right down homely. Medium homely, I'd say.
The Glass Menagerie was Tennessee Williams' first success on Broadway. It transformed an aspiring writer into one of the great American playwrights. The play tells the story of the Wingfield family. A son longs to escape from his stifling home, where his mother worries about the future of his shy, disabled sister, whose only solace is her collection of glass animals. A new production arrives in New York after a run in Boston. Ben Brantley of the New York Times says it promises to be the most revealing revival of a cornerstone classic for many a year to come. Joining me now is a cast of the Glass Menagerie: Zachary Quinto, who plays Tom Wingfield; Celia Keenan-Bolger, who takes the role of his sister Laura; Brian J. Smith is the gentleman called Jim; and the great, great, great Cherry Jones as Amanda Wingfield. I am pleased to have them all at this table. Congratulations.
Thank
you, my dear.
Sir.
It's so great to have you back.
Thank you very much.
So tell me about this play, because Brantley is not alone in saying, oh, my God.
Well, we feel like we are walking in tall cotton, an expression you've heard before.
I know what that means.
We are, it almost feels like we are serving a great cause, and I don't mean, this is not hyperbole. We feel as though, and we feel that way because we've been made to feel this way by our audiences and the critics, that we are reintroducing an American masterpiece to this country. I think people who are poets and have a great depth in high school are able to appreciate this play, and it's lost on everybody else. It was lost on me, I will say that.
You were resistant.
I was resistant. I think I had that Southern chip on my shoulder where it just seemed like another Southern freak show, you know, and depressing. And I didn't, it took a Yorkshireman from Huddersfield, Yorkshire, to convince me that it was a great play with tremendous humor and that it's ultimately about love. These are three people and eventually four people who love each other so deeply, and that's what makes it such a great tragedy. If they don't love each other, who cares? Then it's just boring and grating. But if they deeply love one another, how heartrending is that, to see people torn asunder irrevocably forevermore who loved each other deeply.
But it began with you changing your sense of Amanda. Is that how you got inside?
My first questions, after I had agreed to do it, mainly because John Tiffany's the most charming man this side of you, my first two questions were, how did she, the worst thing that could possibly happen to a post-Victorian woman. Right. She has two children. She's moved to the hard, cold, mean north from Mississippi. And right before World War II, in a German Catholic town, I might add, of St. Louis, Missouri, is abandoned. Now, how in the world did she feed and clothe and shelter those children? Not because she was a Southern belle. Yeah. She was a scrapper.
She was a scrapper.
She was a scrapper. And clever with tremendous energy, and she's left at this point with a son who is desperate to get out for all the apparent reasons, and a daughter who is incapable of surviving on her own. So it's like every parent of a child who's disabled in some way. What will happen when I'm gone?
Why does Tom need to get out?
I mean, for the obvious reasons of self-discovery, I think, for a realization of who he is, independent of the responsibility that was inappropriately thrust upon him by his father, ultimately, who abandoned the family.
So he's got to take care of his sister.
Well, he's made to believe that he needs to take care of his sister.
Well, you do.
Yeah, of course, and that's the thing, you know, the journey, he's never able to get out from underneath the weight of that and the weight of the decision that he needs to make for himself. It's a classic story in terms of relatability. I think any adult child who pursued their own goals, their own dreams, at a certain point had to confront the limitations of what their family expected of them. And Tom certainly doesn't know where his dreams will take him, but he knows he needs to find out.
I mean, this resonates with me. I grew up in a small town. You know, it was a place on the railroad running straight north. You know, and the idea of where those trains going and how do I get on them one was an idea that you know I constantly thought about. How did you get inside the head of Tennessee Williams?
Well, there's no shortage.
His original name was Tom, wasn't
Yes, of course. Tom Lanier Williams. There's no shortage of literature about him, obviously, or stories by him about his family, and many versions of what ultimately became this play. So there were a lot of points of entry for me. Lyle Everett's biography, certainly, all of the notebooks and collections of Tennessee's own writings, and we were really lucky when we were up at the ART to be near that archive in Harvard, and we were able to spend a day with his actual notebooks in our hands, and photo albums and manuscripts, and absolutely the pencil scrawlings, and that is, I think, to the point of what Cherry's saying in terms of what we do as actors when it's at this level, and I don't think any of us could have imagined how this would be received here in New York so far, is we serve as...
It's just so over the top, you could never have imagined that.
What, the response?
Yeah.
Well, I've never been on Broadway before, so for me, it makes perfect sense. But for these guys who have done it before, they're like, no, it doesn't go this way. But you know...
You could say to Jerry, I never imagined if you go on stage in New York, they'd just go crazy.
Who knew? But that we serve as conduits in so many ways for something larger than us, as Tennessee did. I mean, I believe when someone is as gifted and talented and as accomplished as Tennessee, that talent doesn't just leave the earth when they do. Yeah. And I think the joy that we have every night is stepping into that corridor that he was somehow a part of, that we are serving and that we are giving away again in a way that hasn't been done in a long time. And that's the most exciting thing, I think, for us.
Celia, tell me about Laura.
Well, she's, you know, the older sister of Tom Wingfield, and I think is someone whose interior life is large, but who has a very, very difficult time expressing herself, and that in addition to growing up with this physical disability and the weight of a very protective, loving mother who sometimes loves too hard, has sort of shut down, and a great love for her brother, but who she also realizes has other things that he needs in his life. And I think the weight of expectations and the weight of disappointment that she feels like she brings to the family is as crippling as her physical disability.
And then comes the gentleman caller.
Here he comes.
Here he comes.
And there he goes.
She gets to see for one glorious moment in her life, I think, what true love is. And we should all be so lucky to have a moment like that.
And tell me who he is.
Well, it's funny because I think it's the reading version. There's several versions of the play, and I think it's the reading version. Tennessee gave these amazing paragraph-long descriptions of Amanda and Tom and Laura.
What does he say about the gentleman caller?
A nice, ordinary young man. That's it.
That's it.
That's all he says about him. And I think that, you know, John, Tiffany, our director, and I were very intrigued, not by that statement, but by the space around that statement and the possible irony of that statement. What is Jim's relationship to just being a nice, ordinary young man, and have the world think of you as just a nice, ordinary young man?
Let me talk about the director who's not here. Many people say that film is a director's medium, theater is an actor's medium. But directors, okay, stop me there. Directors play an important role in theater. I mean, what does John bring to this for all of you?
I think for me, you know, he represents the most collaborative director that I think I've ever worked with in film or theater or television. I just feel there's such a spirit of let's all figure this out together. And we are serving his vision, That is the grain of it all. But he involves each of us and all of his collaborators in such a way that everybody participates. It's not anybody just serving somebody else's vision. It's really all of us in there, in the trenches together, figuring out how we can best serve one another, too.
All right, take a look at this. This is where Tom tells his mother that there will be a gentleman caller.
I thought perhaps you wished for a gentleman caller.
Now, why do you say that?
Don't you remember asking me to fetch one?
I remember suggesting that it would be nice for your sister if you brought home some nice young man from the warehouse. I think that I have made that suggestion more than once.
Yes, you have made it repeatedly.
Well,
we are going to have one.
what? You mean you've asked for some nice young man to come over?
I asked him over to dinner.
You really did?
I did.
Did he accept?
He did.
He did?
He did. I
I
thought you would be pleased.
It's definite then?
Oh, very definite.
How soon?
Pretty soon.
How soon?
Quite
How
soon.
soon?
Very, very
Every time
soon.
I want to know anything, you start going on like that.
He is coming tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Oh, Joe, I can't do anything about tomorrow. I can't do anything about tomorrow.
Why not?
Doesn't give me any time.
Time for what?
Time for preparations. You should have told me the minute that you asked him, the minute that he accepted
You
it.
don't have to make any fuss.
Of course I have to make a fuss. I can't have a man coming into a place that's all slop. He's got to be thrown together properly. And I certainly have to do some fast think about tomorrow night, too.
I don't see why you have to think at all.
That's because you just don't know. You just don't know. That's all.
The other character. What?
Yes, please.
Please.
I love that scene so much.
yes,
Oh,
that
I
is-
could watch that scene 100 times.
Now, why do you love it so much?
The two of them, because the beginning of the act is so fraught and very, I mean, this play, right out of the gate, is, he does not waste time, and there is such friction between the two of them for the first 3 scenes of the play, 2-3 scenes of the play.
Really, four.
4.
Yeah.
And then we get to that, and it's like, oh, I see. This is like how this family functions. There's this, and there's hardship, but the two of them together in that scene it's magic.
And the possibility of these two as a mother-son dynamic is so beautiful. The love, you see the love and the chemistry that they have, and the fun that they have, and the ribbing, and you want them to be able to hold on to that so bad.
And also, they say it's a memory play. What does that mean?
Well, I do think that's something that we really dove into with this particular production is that this is really a conjuring of Tom's fractured memories, and the production represents that. It's all of the essentials are distilled to the props that are only the most necessary for us here in this production. So, you know, there is no plate of food in front of us when we sit down to dinner. Things are represented in gesture and in expression physically in a way that does away with the traditional glass in front of you on the table naturalism that Tennessee actually wrote to the idea of playing against with this play in particular, that memories are not whole, memories are not crystalline. They're often murky, and they often bleed into one another and are born out of one another. So I think we tried to capture that in a way. John and Stephen Hoggett, his movement collaborator, who is an incredible and really important influence on this production, along with Bob Crowley and Natasha Katz, Nico Muhly with the music, and everybody else that contributed to the technical aspects of the play, really tried to capture that in a theatrical manner. And we asked ourselves and each other, what does that mean when Amanda comes out and says, I have a liquid refreshment, but there is no lemonade? What does it mean to use the language instead of a pitcher of lemonade? Yeah.
We joked that when we came onto your set, we felt so at home, because this is the most beautiful set you've almost ever seen for the Glass Menagerie. But it's not unlike your set. Yeah. We are floating on these hexagons, literally in this black pool, surrounded by blackness, so that what happens on that stage has to be, and I like to think more often than not, incredibly vivid.
Yeah.
like it is in a dream or in memory. But like you say, a glass only, because it's, what's that word, totemic? I think I read that somewhere about what we choose to use in this play. They're totemic things that in a memory, you don't remember your mother's cutlery, you remember the one piece of cutlery, whatever. Anyway, it's...
And also, I think by stripping away so many props and by keeping the space so spare, it allows the audience to enter the piece in a different way that I think Williams says in one of the forewords. He says it's the theater's job and an actor's job to try to get as close to the emotional truth as possible. And I think when you take all of those things away, then the audience is able to bring their own emotional truth, even if they don't have a reference point of the Wingfield on and into the experience.
And as a proud mother, I just would like to say that these two, in that gentleman caller scene, the play has gone, it is so delicious, and then you get to this scene. And it is, the humor in this scene is extraordinary. And what you see in their rendering of it is a gentleman caller who in his own way is as fragile. He's been disappointed by life already at such an early age, and is as fragile in a way as Laura, and he needs her as much as she needs him, so that when he walks away to Betty, that girl at the Wabash Station, it's just devastating.
Thanks, Mother.
You're welcome.
We'll come back to Mother. Let's just talk a moment about the role of Tom as narrator and how Tennessee uses that.
Well, narrator Tom is the haunted Tom, the Tom that's been chasing. The thing that I really resonates for me, for Tom the narrator, is Tennessee the writer. So if you look at Tennessee's writings, if you look at his plays, pieces of himself and his family show up throughout his body of work, both as men and women, aspects of his persona, aspects of his family, but there's no clearer distillation than this play and this one character. So for me, the idea of what Tennessee was trying to capture in all of the amazing and beautiful works that he left behind, but also the thing that he was trying to escape, and he never did. And I think in many ways, and of course none of us really had the privilege or the pleasure of knowing him or being able to talk to him about this, but my sense, and maybe I'm swayed, but my sense is that he was always, part of what he was always chasing was this play, and that this, for me, is his masterpiece because of that. And Tom, the narrator, represents that, you know, and every night when he says to Laura, blow out your candles, you know that what happened to his real sister Rose and the journey that she took in her life, and how divergent their paths were and how diametrically opposed their experiences were, is something that never left him. And I think that's what Tom the narrator represents in a lot of ways.
You also said the plays that I love and the parts I love are the ones that make people feel less alone. You know.
Yeah.
And how does that apply here?
Well, there is in the final moments of this production, of this great play every night, Charlie, the silence that we hear throughout this play, when they're not laughing, there's a kind of listening and feeling going on, and there is a silence, prolonged, that I've never heard. Out of 30-some-odd years in this business, I've never heard that kind of silence before, that prolonged. And at the end of the play, what I felt most strongly, Sunday matinee, I felt a collective pain in that audience, because everyone has had this cathartic time together with this play, and with their own baggage and their own heartbreak and their own regret and their own joys. You know, it's all there in this play, and their families. And so it is a communion of souls in that audience. And I like to say that it is done in such an artistic way that in the end, it's also uplifting, because great art is.
Now take a look. This is the gentleman caller, Brian, talking to Laura. Here it is, this magical thing.
When I left high school, I sure thought I'd be a lot further along at this time than I am now. You remember that wonderful write-up I had in the Torch?
Yes.
It said I was bound to succeed in anything that I went into. Oh, holy jeez, the torch. Oh,
Here you are in the Pirates of Penzance.
the pirates. Oh, better far to live and die under the brave black flag.
You want to say what? The next
man.
What?
That's why I'll never be in a musical. Right there.
You have a beautiful singing voice.
As we close here, you mentioned, we can't ask Tennessee questions, but if you could, what would each of you want to ask him about the Glass Menagerie?
I just would like to go out and have 2 drinks with him.
Like you leave? Well,
I would probably say.
Zachary, what would you like to ask?
I feel the same way. I mean, we as a company have spent so many nights together talking about the play, talking about Tennessee, communing with one another, and I feel like just to have him as a 5th member of that, the nights we had in Cambridge around a table, I don't know, I just feel like he would steer the conversation and take good care of us. He'd answer all our questions.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a question. I'd just like to thank him.
Yeah, thank him for giving you a role that you could...
Yeah, for the play.
I'd ask him if he liked our production of it.
If he didn't, he'd be the only one we know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have each of you here. The Glass Menagerie will be at the Booth Theater now through January 5th. January 5th. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.